What's good, Gifted? This is your host, Steph Wood, and I'm coming to you from my city, once again, Norfolk, Virginia. What good, my gifted people. Let me tell you why I'm so hyped today. A, because I need no reason to be hyped. I'm hyped by myself. B, I have my longtime friend, Coach Bob Burke, coming on with Ace and myself for another full-time out episode. So we're really excited to have him on. Another reason why I'm just excited and refreshed today was because of Sunday. I was able to participate in a prayer march. You know, I have been just figuring out what to say, figuring out how to deal with what we've been going through, making sure that I can sensitive statements, because I grew up with all different cultures, and I'm a homegirl, you know, like I'm just a homegirl. I love the fellas. I love the basketball life. Like that's just who I am. And that brought me around just so many great people of all different cultures, but predominantly African Americans. So I didn't really know where I stood. I was like, wait a second, what is really going on here? And am I like, just by being associated with Black people, not doing enough? Because I started to really look at myself like, wait a minute, what's going on? So in the midst of all that, we got to participate in this prayer march. And for this 30-second soapbox, I just want to kind of pat this guy on the back. We had a great Presbyterian preacher that spoke to the group of us before we went on our prayer march, and pretty much looked at the white people in the place. There were thousands of us there, and I do claim white because I'm Italian and Sicilian, and for all intents and purposes, that's what I am. We all were listening to this pastor discuss his views on how we needed to move forward in solidarity and how we needed to connect. And when he idea and the subject of white Christians, he very, very directly and with a lot of respect and knowledge pointed out all the ways that white Christians have been complicit in the denial of racism, have been silent in the protection of our Black brothers and sisters and our brown brothers and sisters, have been methodical in their vulgar use of the Christian word, of the word of God, to spread hate and condemn an entire race. And then he asked us all to kneel. So we knelt. And then he asked us all to repent. And I never thought about repenting in that way because race had never been an issue for me. But as I looked around, as I was on my knees, kneeling, and listening to the prayer of this pastor calling on all white Christians to repent, all white Christians to understand their lack and their criminality in this race war and this war against inequality and murder and rage. They were all crying. So that's when I realized that that day with this prayer march in downtown Norfolk was far more important than any personal feeling or personal fear that I had with my friends. So I just simply reached out and I said, hey, y'all, I love you. You're important to me. You matter to me. End racism now. Black lives matter. And that's all I have to say about that. That's been my 30-second soapbox. That was more like 3 minutes. So I'm sorry, y'all. Ace, you're going to have to start reining me in, brother, because I'm way out here in the deep end.
I was kind of caught up in your spiel. I mean, it was very interesting getting your side of your participation into the march. And me as a Black man, I've dealt with this all my life. Sometimes athletics kind of camouflages it for me for a little bit, because sometimes when we're in the locker room, we view each other as brothers and we go out with a common goal. But then when I go out into the real world, sometimes if people don't recognize me as a basketball player and they just see me in the streets, they see me as a Black man sometimes. And as a youngster, when I first got my license, my mom always told me, you know, if you ever get stopped by the police, make sure you put your hands up on the steering wheel, make sure you follow his orders. And these are some things that, you know, when my son got his license, I passed it on to him because we lived that. And it's sad, but it's a occurring thing, and it happens far too much. And talking to some of my friends as well, I always, now it's really putting a spotlight on the situation. If you turn on CNN, if you turn on the TV to any channel, you kind of see what's going on in the world. And it's been a dialogue between my friends and myself. And we start talking about some of our past experiences. We always sharing our experiences. What happened in your lifetime? What did you go through? And it's really sad. It's really sad. And if you've never been profiled and know what it feels like, it's hard to really understand. But I see now that the nation is united. All races, ethnic backgrounds, everyone is out united for one common goal, and that's to bring an end to the police brutality and a lot of the racism that's going on.
You said it right. You said it, Ace. And I'm really so glad that you and your family are a part of my life. You know that I love you, but you know that I appreciate you. And you know that I know that your life and all the lives of everyone like you matter. But the thing is that they more than matter. They're essential. They're essential to our growth. They're essential to our life. They're essential to their loved ones. They are a necessity. It's something that we have to have. We have to value that more, and we have to show our value in our response. Ace, thanks so much for talking with me about that. You know, me and you, we've always been so like, hey, you know, we're cool and everything, but there are people out here that are hurting, like really, really hurting. So it's important that we talk.
Exactly. When you said earlier, when you see yourself just being around athletes and being one of the guys, I always looked at Steph Wood as one of the homies because we talk sports. I mean, you're a real genuine person. You've never changed and always been the same. And I look at you as one of the guys that we always chop it up with.
That's right. And that's what it's about. And so that's a great segue because we're about to chop it up with my dear Coach Bob Burke. Before we bring him on, Coach has been around basketball forever and ever and ever, Ace. You know that. He grew up in the gym, following the lead of his legendary father, who is no longer with us. May God rest his soul, Coach Bob Burke. And he grew up in the gym, so he's a gym rat, right? I mean, you know he is. And this guy, I watched him work his way into Nike. He's working into Division 2, 3 programs, making his way, standing on his own, having success after success after success. But Ace, the one thing that points out really about Coach Bob Burke is his intensity and his tenacity. And that is what I cannot wait to connect every one of our listeners with right now. I am honored and excited to bring on my guy and your new guy, or your old guy, my guy, whatever. He's a guy. Coach Bob Burke. Rob, what's good?
Appreciate y'all having me on. Just excited to be here, man. I'm blessed. You gave me a resounding intro there. Hopefully I can live up to it, I'm just, like you said, I'm just a basketball guy, man. I don't know anything else, man. My mom was in education. My dad was a college basketball coach. I've been in the gym since I was, 3, 4, 5, running around. I'm lucky, man. I really am. What's going on in our country and what's perspired here the last 3 weeks, man. Guys like me, be honest with you, we part of the problem. I've been privileged, and I've been blessed. And there's a lot of my friends, and I think you, Steph, some of the people I grew up with, like my friends didn't have the same opportunities I had. And it was because, my mom was in education. She was a white principal, white superintendent. My dad was a white basketball coach, and we lived in a predominantly black community. And to be honest with you, I got to have a better voice. I'll be honest with you. I got to do a better job as a human being to have a better voice. And it's just, it's sad what's going on. It really hurts, to be honest with you, to just look back and say, man, I know I can't tell how many guys I grew up with that did not have the opportunities I had, that my parents, provided for me. And then you start to do the math and you look at me, get outside my little, circle of Murfreesboro, North Carolina, and you think about how many towns throughout the United States, these kids, there's so many people just didn't have opportunity. And then I start doing a better job of trying to research and read here the last 3 weeks, man. And Lord have mercy, boy, we got a lot of stuff we got to fix, y'all. We got a lot of stuff we got to fix.
Rob, this is why I love you so dearly, Rob, because, you know, you just moved me now when you said that, you know, you recognize your privilege.
Yep.
I mean, that, Ace, what does that sound like? I mean, what does that feel like to you? And I mean, you, like you said earlier, you recognized your privilege as basketball athletes. I mean, we all did. We all had privilege as athletes. All of us, girls, boys, gear. I mean, not like illegal gear, but like, you know, stuff. Like we just always had an edge. Ace, what's your reaction to that?
You know, my friends, when I went to Virginia Tech, my first time really experiencing it was my freshman year at Virginia Tech. I was walking down the street, and a older gentleman drove past, a white gentleman drove past, and he said, "Go back where you came from." And I was kind of like, wow, he just said that to me, and I reacted in the wrong way. I tried to pick up a rock and throw it at his car. I mean, looking back, I mean, that was a young 18-year-old responding the wrong way. And that was my first time. But through athletics, it kind of blinded me sometimes because I was always around my teammates, and we was always laughing and joking. I knew their parents personally. They knew my parents personally. So it was a big family atmosphere. But when, like Rob said, the privilege side is when you go outside of that locker room, when you walk down the street, when you're in your car alone and that officer or someone don't recognize you as that athlete. And when I was walking on the yard at Virginia Tech, some of my Black friends would tell me when we hanging out, man, you're privileged because you're an athlete. And I'm like, I was in denial. What do you mean I'm privileged? I mean, I got the same struggles. And they were saying some of the benefits that I had being an athlete or some of the resources that I had on campus as an athlete provided me an opportunity to excel in the classroom because the tutors, because being able to register for your classes before the student body or early on so you can make sure you get the classes. And they were saying that I was privileged. And now I look at it in totality as saying, you know, I was privileged in that aspect. And like when Rob said he was privileged, he had opportunities maybe some African Americans didn't have.
Yeah.
And way of saying I was privileged through athletics.
I was too. I was blinded by it. Because like Ace said, I was in the locker room all the time. I mean, I've been in the locker room since I was 5 years old, man. I saw my dad throw coolers, punch the lockers. I mean, my dad was a nut job back in the day now. But I was one of the guys. I was always around the team. I was always around my teammates. And to be honest with you, I never was put in a situation to where I saw race rear its ugly head. And so it went right by, it went right over my head because I was with the guys. I was one of the guys. You know, nobody, you know, Steph knows guys I grew up with, man. I was just one of the guys. And, you know, going through college, I just never recognized it. And then I'll tell you when it hit me, when it really hit me. So I married a Puerto Rican woman, and she is the rock behind me right now. And I adopted our daughter now, but she was 3 and she's biracial. So she's half Puerto Rican, half Black. And as she got older and we were in Charleston at the Citadel, there was times me and her would go eat as she got older. She got about 16 or 17. I noticed people looking at us different. Like almost to the point where people would look at us like, is he dating her? And I would say to her, I was like, what do you think they're thinking over there? What do you think they're saying over there? And, you know, if you've ever been to Charleston, South Carolina, if there's segregation anywhere, it's in Charleston sometimes, man. It really is. I just never seen a more socio-dynamic, like separation from North Charleston to Charleston. It's unbelievable, man. And, you know, I started really noticing it then as she got older. And obviously, you know, as we've gone through here the last, 10 years, it's really started to rear its ugly head. But I was oblivious to it too, Ace. I really was.
Well, it sounds like there are a lot of us in different situations who were either subconsciously just going about life.
Yep.
In our home, we think it's good elsewhere. I love it that the communities are rallying, and I'm so grateful to you guys for your hearts and talking about that. But let's get a full time out, okay? Because I really want to talk about, what basketball has meant to you. And now as you're getting older and you've seen kids come and go from programs you've coached, from teams that you've played with, your time with Nike Skill and all of your individual workouts and regimens and routines, What is basketball now versus what it was when you were that 5-year-old kid in the gym? Or is it still the same?
It's still the same. The pressure, I guess, I put on myself personally to be successful at coaching is more so than it was as a player. Like when I played and I was just having fun. Like I loved it. Like I loved being in the gym, playing pickup. I mean, to be honest with you, I wanted to play more than I wanted to coach. But the only way to stay around the game and continue, to chase what I was looking like, the competition, just the everyday kind of like the game within the game, you going against a point guard or you going against a two guard. I missed that competition. And so I got into coaching looking for that. But I guess just because of, how successful my dad was, I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to be better than him. Because, I mean, my dad, my dad, Steph, I mean, my dad would talk junk to me. I'd answer the phone like, Coach Burke. He'd go, "It's the real Coach Burke." And so, like, I became competitive. My dad won 480-some games. I mean, it's an astronomical number. At one time, it was Coach K, Dean Smith, and then my dad winning as coaches in the state of North Carolina at one time. But, I guess it's changed from the standpoint of it's my life. I've never, ever worked a job a day in my life. I mean, since I was, 15, I did some work there in Murfreesboro or something, but I've never had a job. I just got up and go to the gym and, help young men. And one thing I tell you what has changed too, one of my dad's assistants, Jim Tribbett, really reached me when I was about 13 or 14. And so, as like a knucklehead kid, all the time I didn't want to listen to my dad. And so I took some advice from him from a basketball standpoint. He really helped me, take the next step with my game as I got older. And, I want to give back. At the end of the day, Coach Tribbett made me feel a certain way. And I was able to have some success with what he taught me. And I know how the confidence that gave me as a person. There's a lot of kids out there that need to be told, "Hey man, you're pretty good now. You're pretty good. Let's go to work on it. Let's push yourself. Let's drive you a little bit." And then, you start to pat them on their back and you see these guys start to blossom as they get older. And I tell you, I've taken a lot of joy in that throughout my career, just seeing guys start to have a little success and really blossom as people and see their game blossom as well.
Yeah, it sounds like basketball has been a multitude of things for you.
Yeah.
Ace, Rob mentioned that his kids are most important. Are you kind of sharing that sentiment? And what kind of experiences have you had with your players that kind of mimic that, that commitment?
When Rob just said that he never worked a day in his life, I thought the same thing. I don't think when I left high school, I used to work a little summertime jobs here at the school, cutting grass with my grandfather. That was my summertime job when I was in high school, to buy my school clothes, to help my mother and my father out purchasing my school clothes. But then once I left for college, I don't think I really had a real job ever since I left high school. And I say that because I love the game of basketball. It has opened so many avenues and so many doors for me. I've had a chance to travel the world with this round ball. I always tell my players, you do not disrespect the basketball, and it will always respect and do right by you. So if you do right by that basketball, it can take you a lot of places. And now it's like when I go to the gym and my wife or my kids will say, "You've been gone all day. You've been gone. Are you tired?" No, because I've been in the gym. I'm not tired. I mean, yeah. I look at my watch and be like, "Oh, it's 6 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. Well, let me go ahead home." But I lose track of time because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And as a player, I look back at my career and I can see myself catching an alley-oop and dunking it and the crowd going crazy. And it was like, yeah, that's a good feeling running back down court. But I get a better feeling after I've been in the gym and I've been grinding and working out with a player. And then he used that same exact move in the game and then doing it. You was right. That was easy work. That was easy. So to see him grow and learn, I get more gratification out of seeing their development than I did of my own accolades.
And it's so true. And both of you guys share in the fact that both of you are players' coaches. Straight up. Rob, that brings me to your time back when And of course, you and I went to college together.
Yeah.
And then the first time I ever saw you do a camp, you came out to Southampton Academy in Cortland, Virginia.
I remember that.
And you did skill. And then years later, we linked up again with Gannon. Have you always been a skill guy? Like, has it been the small things about basketball that have intrigued you the most?
I mean, look, I'm 5'8". I was $172 soaking wet back in the day. So like, if I couldn't handle it, I couldn't pass it, and I couldn't shoot it, man, I didn't have a chance. I mean, it was, I just didn't have the athleticism or the length that is out there that some kids are blessed with. I didn't have that. So if I was going to survive, man, I had to be able to be quick with the basketball, and I had to have it on a rope. I really did. And so, my dad started me at a young age just doing stationary ball handling drills, and as I grew, I just it just became a part of who I was and what my game was. And so, just having a really good base, just footwork. Like I watch kids all the time, man. Kids can't pivot. They got no idea of like reverse pivot, front pivot. I know it sounds technical, but like you got to be able to do whatever you do with your right hand, you got to be able to do with your left hand. Whatever you do with your footwork, you got to be able to do with both feet, man. And that's how this game was developed. And in order for me to like survive and be successful, and my dad demanded it from me. Like it wasn't. I mean, I'll never forget this. My dad put a line out in the yard and around in my hoop at the house. If he caught me shooting outside of that, like the ball was going up, and he's liable to knock me upside the head. Like I couldn't, because you take the ball and I would be hoisting it. I wouldn't be shooting it because I was too small and not strong enough to shoot the ball properly. So, just those things. And then as I got older, I started seeing Gannon. I'll tell you a good Gannon story. So Gannon's a rising senior at UNC Wilmington. I'm a rising senior in high school. So I go down to team camp at UNC Wilmington, and my high school's in the team camp where they want me to play with the college guys at night. And so I don't know who Gannon Baker is. I have no idea who any of these dudes are. So I get out there. I'm out there. I'm going up and down. Gannon comes down, in and out, right hand pull up. I was like, all right, I got it. I know what to sit on. Shoot, that joker came down and shot that three left-handed. I was like, man, what? And then he just, like, for the next 3 or 4 possessions, he had me. I mean, I was on skates. So the gym, the game's finished or whatnot. And so I went up to him, and he was doing some stuff. He's stretching. Gannon's got his whole little routine he got to go through. And I was like, G, hey, man, you got to show me how you did that. And he eyeballed me. He said, hey, if you're not willing to shoot 500 today, man, don't ask me that question. And so from that point on, I started getting like starting to call him and get serious with it and really like say, all right, let me get better. And I started trying to shoot left-handed. I never got good at it, but I saw him years later. We ran Kevin Eastman's Randolph Macon big man camp and guard camp for college guys. We worked 3 straight hours in the morning. Then me and him worked out for 2 hours. Then we worked another 3 hours that afternoon with the guys. Then me and him worked out another 2 hours. So, I mean, I just became a part of my life, and to have that, it's the only way I could survive, really. I had to be good with some of the skills and fundamentals that my dad taught me when I was little. So sorry for the run on there.
Don't be sorry. I saw Ace. I heard Ace laughing in the background.
Ace, Gannon. I mean, Gannon's just like a machine, man. I mean, a machine.
He's not human. He's not human.
And when you said you got to get in the gym and shoot 500 or make 500, which one was it?
Oh, he said make 500. I can see it. I'm 44 years old. I can see Gannon sitting on the floor stretching, looking at me and saying, hey, if you ain't willing to make 500 a day, both hands, then ain't nothing to talk about. And I was like, I mean, that was like the way, that was like, all right, man, if you plan on being good and you want to play here or play anywhere, like this is the next level. You got to take that next step.
And for me, when I was in college, I never shot the 3-ball. I couldn't shoot. I mean, I was a hustler playing hard. I was open. I was watching the NIT championship game the other day against Marquette in 1995, and my wife looked at me and laughed and said, "Why you didn't shoot that shot?" I looked at her and was like, "Because I couldn't shoot."
Yeah.
She remembered me post-college a lot too because I was really shooting a 3-ball. But I had to develop a 3-point shot. In college, I was doing just enough to get by, to get out the gym and get back out with my friends having fun. But then when it became a job and I was overseas, I would not leave the gym until I made 100 threes every single day post-practice.
Yeah.
So it got to the point that I was shooting 7, 8 threes a game. In transition, I would pull a 3 because I got confident in it. And when you said make 500, that develops confidence.
No question. No question.
picture that in my head. I'm telling you that.
Yeah. It's this game is all about confidence, man. You see guys when they hit that peak, man, they just know they can count on their skills. They've done the work in the gym. You know, the Kobe's of the world, LeBron, KD, man. You know, when they get going, man, it's just that's repetition of years and years and years of work. And you know, for those guys, it's the highest level, the highest peak in basketball in the world.
Most definitely, I agree. And you know, at the professional level, all guys always say, "Oh, the NBA looks so easy." They're not playing any defense. Those guys are just so gifted athletically and offensively that it makes the defense look bad. So if you got a team that plays good defense, team defense, because no superstar can stop a superstar one-on-one. Because they always say, if I get to my sweet spot, I can get my shot off. And that was my mentality. If I can get to my sweet spot, I don't care who's guarding me. I'm going to be confident in my shot and getting it off.
Hey, so my dad coached Nate McMillan, and he got lucky enough to go join the Blazers staff. So I'd never really been to an NBA practice before then. So I go out for Thanksgiving, and they're going to play I think they were playing Houston. Seattle was still a franchise, and they played Washington. So I got to see those 3 games. But the first day, I was so excited to go see the practice. And they had Ruben Patterson. They had, Zebo. They had some young kids. They had drafted Telfair. They had Juan Dixon in there, man. And so, you know, I go in the gym and I'm watching them practice. And I always thought like I was pretty good. I was mesmerized sitting on the sideline, really watching them compete and practice. I'm saying to myself, I don't think I can get a shot off out here. I really don't. I don't think I could get a shot off if I was in triple threat position. It was amazing. And just to watch Ruben Patterson compete, I was like, oh my goodness. It like people, until you go on that floor and you see the level, you cannot, TV does not do it justice, man.
Well, let's get a 30-second timeout right there because you guys are seriously really hitting on all cylinders here. We've talked about Coach Bob Burke. We have reviewed Nate McMillan. I want to do a throwback back to your days at Chowan, if you could real quick. Was it like, okay, we're definitely going to do Chowan because my dad is at Chowan and I'm going to play for my dad. I have a great story about your dad. I'll never forget it. I was in the gym at Chowan shooting basketball. I was all by myself. And he's in there for some reason. I think he's walking by or something. I don't know. And I said, hey, Coach Burke, you got a minute? And he was like, you got a minute? I'm like, I do have a minute.
Sounds like him.
And he seemed like he was 50 feet tall. And I just remember asking him, like, a question about his passion. I think it was something along the lines, like, I really like how you coach. Where do you get all that fire? You know? And he said, I was just born that way.
Yeah. If you knew my dad's family, he had to be fiery. He couldn't have made it out of Staten Island without being fiery, to be honest with you.
And that's, you know, and I remembered that. And I saw your dad on campus, and he would always speak to me. He would always wave. You know, he was very gracious, very. He just was. What's the word? He glowed.
Yeah.
You know, what was that like playing for him at Chowan? And was that always going to be where you ended up?
No, so I obviously I played there at Hertford County High School, and you know I love growing. Like, people make fun of Murfreesboro, but I'll be honest with you. Like, I've lived in Charleston, Wilmington. I've lived in Clare, Ireland. I've lived in a lot of different places. Spartanburg, South Carolina. Man, I miss home. I mean, that's Murfreesboro is home to me. I miss going home and seeing my boys, and you know, just kind of like, you know, just being there. I don't know. It's home for me. But I just thought I wanted to be a Division I basketball player. Like, you know, I'd seen all my dad's players. I guess, you know, seeing my dad's players go to the places they went to, because when he coached them, they were junior college players. So it was going to be 2 years at Chowan, and then they would go on and continue their career. I mean, my dad had 147. I'd have to go back and look at his numbers. I think it was 147 just Division I players. I think he had like 13 pros and 3 NBA guys. So, you know, it was there was really, really good basketball back when I was growing up, and I was able to see these guys. So, you know, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I can be one of those dudes. I'm one of those guys. But I wasn't talented enough. So I went off to prep school one year. I left Hertford County, and I went to New Hampton Prep. And I squared up on the wing one time, and Victor Page, who played at Georgetown, I don't know if you remember that name, Ace. Victor Page ripped the ball away from me and went down, and he hammerjacked this thing left-handed. And I was like, man, I got some work to do. And so, I mean, I had a great experience up there, but I figured out real quick, like, hey, I'm not a Division I player. I'll be honest with you. I was a good, solid backup for that team. I ran up against some really, really good players. Randall Jackson, Victor Page, Debonair Dees played at Florida State. Like, Ed Cota was a sophomore in high school, and he was just running circles around me. So I said, you know what? I enjoyed playing, and I wanted to play a lot. And I was like, you know what? Dad sat me down. He treated me just like anybody else. That's the biggest compliment I can give to my dad. I respect him the most because, like, he didn't treat me no different. Matter of fact, I think he pressed on me harder than he pressed on anybody else. And Steph can tell you, my dad pressed pretty hard. So, you know, he sat me down. He said, hey, I ain't gonna give you nothing. You're gonna earn everything. Only thing I can promise you is a hard time. And I just knew, I was like, all right, I know how good of a coach my dad is. Like, let me give it a shot. And so my roommate, Jerry Croak, got hurt in the summer going into my freshman year. So I came in right as a freshman and basically got thrown to the wolves. And there was days, I mean, you know, my dad was riding me hard. Now here I am trying to be, you know, a traditional point guard. I wasn't a scoring point guard. You know, I was going to run the offense. I was going to get us in our break, get the ball moving, keep it flowing, feed it in. Back then, you know, we threw it into the post. I mean, it was going down low. We had a big man that could score. So, you know, but freshman and sophomore year, I mean, I tried to go to that Subway, Steph. You know where that Subway is? They had a payphone up there. I tried to call my mama every night and transfer, but she wasn't, you know, it was the best thing for me, man. It really was, because I learned what real discipline was, and my dad holding me accountable, you know, and teaching me, hey man, this is how a point guard's got to play. You got to command a team. And that's how I coach. And to say, I coach just like I played, to be honest with you. I'm animated. I'm enthusiastic. I'm energetic. And so, you know, I really was able to have a good junior year. I had some injuries that I had to fight through, and then I had a great senior year with my dad. But it was the best thing that I could have gone through that prepared me for what I've been through in my life, to be honest with you.
Rob, yes, sir. And I love talking about your dad. He was a role model for me. You know, he was one of those guys on campus that I looked up to, and I appreciated his fieriness. I think when I started coaching, I would have him and Wendy Larry in my mind, and right. I mean, we would be at skill camp with Gannon, and we'd be at the last day of camp, and I would be coaching the game like it was life depending on it. You know what I'm saying, Ace? You know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Ace, Rob has done exceptionally well, you know, in his coaching career. But I'm pointing out that he graduated 94% of his players from Spartanburg Methodist colleges, including NCAA Division I players, Terrence Greer, John Anderson, Brendan Knox, Chad DeWitt, Vernon Taylor. How hard is that as a coach to make sure your kids graduate? Like, real talk, like that's a tough thing, right? It's
a part of the package. Like, if you're gonna walk around here and want to be a coach, you got to be a leader for young men. And at the end of the day, you know, Ace, you know this, I know this, but a lot of families don't, man. That ball's gonna stop bouncing, and like, everybody wants to be a pro, everybody wants to go overseas, everybody wants to get drafted and leave early. Man, there is a select few that get to cash a check for playing basketball. It really is. There's not that many guys out there that can say that they're a pro and they get paid off of it. And so, you know, you got to have something, you know, when you turn 40 years old, man, a lot of things happen that you got to be prepared for. And I think just really trying to grab an 18-year-old to 21-year-old and really express that to them at that time, that's a tough task. But you know what? It's part of your job. You know, I hear coaches sometimes, you know, they get frustrated with kids and whatnot, but that's part of the package. Like, you signed up to lead and to mentor and to guide. And those are things you have to instill in your players. Like you mentioned Vernon Taylor. Vernon Taylor's finishing his 9th year, I think, playing professionally overseas. He was in, I want to say he was in Turkey this past year. And he's just, it's amazing. The kid's from Cross, South Carolina. I'd have to take both of y'all to get you there, man. It's down there, man. It is down there in the country. And, you know, he came to me, and the only reason I got lucky and got him, he was selected for the North-South game, which is North Carolina against South Carolina, and he broke his foot and couldn't play in the game. And so I had recruited him most of the year, but I knew, like, he was going to have to go to junior college. He struggled with the test score. And so, you know, I just worked it. I worked his mom. And to be honest with you, his mom back in the day dated Nick McMillan. So that was kind of a connection that I got in there with. She mentioned that to me, and I just, you know, I took off with that. So I ended up getting him, and he told me, I'll never forget it. Our guys were working out. He still wasn't cleared yet. We had just started school in August, and he was posted up against the wall watching the guys play pickup. And he said, "Coach, man, I got to make it, man. I got to make it." And I said, "Look, it's going to take a lot of work, but you got to go all in with it." And I took the ball away from him at the end of his freshman year. So he played his freshman year, and academically he wasn't getting it done. And I told him, I said, "Hey, man, like, you're not playing next year." And he was just irate with me. And I said, "Look, you can't go Division I. You've already got behind the 8 ball. Like, you have got to take these classes. I got to stop your clock." And I took him out of school. Like, he ended up living, I set him up with an apartment, and he ended up living in town. I got him a job, and he took 9 hours and 9 hours just so we could stop his clock. And, like, I just knew there was something about him. Like, I knew he was going to be able to handle it, but I had to get him to see the forest through the trees. And so the next year, which is the 3rd year with me, he comes back, but really it's sophomore year. And so that's how you, in junior college, that's how you redshirt somebody right there, Ace. You got to know how to work it. But this is what, and I would tell him all the time, you said this is what you wanted to do. But because you didn't take care of your business in first semester and second semester of your freshman year, like, this is how we got to do it. But he worked out with us every day, man. He stayed in the gym, and I could just see the fire in the young man. And so, you know, you hone in on a guy like that. He ended up going to Troy University. He got they won the league his junior year. He had an okay senior year, and then he started his journey. I think he started in Greece, and he's bopped around here and there. You know, he's hit this country, hit that country. Shoot, the place he was at this past year, they made an energy drink of him. And he's just got a great spirit about him, man. And just to see a young man like that make it, and to make his mom proud, he's got a small little community he lives in. And just those people, like guys like that, man, it to be honest with you, it's part of his salary. And I got a great relationship with him, man. He trusts me and I trust him. You know, it's just one of those things that as you go through this business, those things, man, pay off as far as, like, you know, you don't make a lot of money coaching unless you're up there at the highest level. But the levels I've been at, those are some of the things you can cash in and really take value in, because, you know, you see somebody really make something of their life. And he's got so much more to accomplish.
Can't hear you, Steph.
Yeah, I think you got muted, Steph.
Wow, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I apologize. I'll edit that out. You really love your kids. I mean,
like, one thing, Steph, like some of these coaches, and I listen to all my guys. When I say my guys, I'm talking about colleagues. Like, if you're not this day and age going to have a personal relationship, first and foremost, with a young man, he's not going to play hard for you. He's not going to trust in you. He's not going to believe in you. If you don't ask him about his family and figure out what his family dynamic is, if you're not going to find out really what pushes his buttons and really how you can drive him and what makes him tick. Each kid is different, and you're not going to have successful teams if you can't have that relationship with guys, because at the end of the day, Ace will tell you, I mean, it's hard to be good at basketball. And so your coach is going to drive you and push you to be the best you can be. But if that player ain't trusting that I have his best intentions in front of him, and at the same time be able to incorporate everybody on the team, like, you got no shot, man. You got no shot of winning, because you're just going to be fighting this battle and that battle. And, you know, it's too much to overcome. It really is.
Let's get a 30-second timeout right there. Ace, let's get your response to that. I think sometimes there's this thought in people's idea that kids are different at the different levels they're at. Nah, kids are just kids.
Yeah.
They're still kids, right, Ace? What have you experienced?
You know, as a player, I didn't know what it took to be a coach. I thought coaches come in and put a game plan together, and you go out and and they tell us the game plan and you hoop. But it's a lot of hats that a coach wears. A coach, when he comes to the office, he got to put his own personal stories and personal things that he's going through in life aside and dedicate his time and attention to his players. And I had a couple coaches that I looked at them as players coaches. So when I become a coach, I want to be a players coach because I still stay in contact with those coaches today because we built a relationship bigger than basketball. And I always wanted to be that coach that a player can always call me when he was going through a crisis. If he's going through a girlfriend problem on campus, or if he has an academic problem, he can come to me and know that I'm going to be a straight shooter with him, and I'm going to have his back, and I'm going to do all I can to see him through. And so that's how I always approached when I got into coaching. And now it started early on, guys respected me because of my history of playing. I played professional for 15 years, and they respected that. And they will always tell them stories and tell them about the life of a professional player, whether it be overseas and what have you. So then coach put me over academics, and they didn't want to see that side. So when I got on with academics, we had started to develop that relationship. So I always told them, I'm going to hold you accountable because there's going to be a time that you're going to have to put that basketball down. Father Time is undefeated.
Undefeated.
The GOAT,
Disney.
the Michael Jordan was not Michael Jordan in Washington. He was not the same player because Father Time started to win. So I always tell guys, if Father Time could take Michael Jordan out, what is it going to do to your game? So I always tell them, what do you want to do? Use basketball as far as you can and as long as you can to get what you can. If that means being a college athlete and that's the end of the road, look at it as your college was paid for. If you're on scholarship, you don't have any college debt. You don't have any tuition debt. You don't have to worry about repaying loans. So that was your end. But you used basketball as far as you could. If it's for you to go professional and you have the skill set to go professional and you get that opportunity, continue to enjoy that ride. But you always got to have that degree to fall back on because there's going to come a time when you sit on the bench for the last time. And I knew in 2012, I knew going into that last game that I played in that it was my last game. And when that horn went off, I knew it was on to the next phase of my life, the next phase of my life. Luckily, I had my degree, and I was able to fall back and using my degree, to land the college job. But I also had other businesses going on as well because I was trying to pick people's brains along the way. Because there's a lot of people that are successful in different endeavors in life, but if you're not that outgoing person to speak to them and pick their brain, you'll never know sometimes what people have going on.
Ace,
Gosh, you know what wisdom both of you guys have. I mean, literally, and that's why it's great that both of you are in a situation where you're impacting lives, you're able to mentor, reach, teach, guide, develop basketball skill, but also life skills. Let's get a full timeout right there because after you left Spartanburg Methodist, you went on to the Citadel. Is that correct? And how much of a change was that? When I first saw you were at Citadel, I was like, he's going to kill someone.
Yeah.
He's going to kill someone. Them kids ain't ready.
It was a change. Obviously, the Citadel's a military college in South Carolina. And, to me, from a basketball standpoint, it's the hardest thing I've had to do in my life is to convince a young man that, hey, man, this is the road less traveled. Come try it. Come see what it's all about. And then at the end of the day, convince mom and dad because at the end of the day, the Citadel does not have a great racial background. They just have some issues, man. They've had issues down in the South, since this country's evolved, and the Citadel's no different. And to convince young black men to come down there and try it, even just guys that lived in the South, and even just white guys that try the military side of things and not go into the military, but live a disciplined lifestyle and try to, better yourself as a basketball player. And so, it was a great challenge. I learned a lot. I saw some unbelievable, unique kids that couldn't get into the military out of high school, but wanted to be officers. So they took this Citadel track and really trained for 4 years, and then were able to go into the military as officers. I saw guys use it as just a tool in their life to just live a disciplined lifestyle and to be good businessmen. And then, I saw guys like Ashton Moore, came from Nasman River High School, man. Ashton was 5'8", $150, and ended up leaving there as the third all-time leading scorer in school history. And just to see him grow and come out of his shell. But you're not telling. I mean, it was tough. Boy, it was tough. It was really, really hard. But I tell you, it challenged me as a coach. Like I had, at Spartanburg Methodist, we were winning 20 games a year, average 20 wins a year. Down there, man, you got between 10 and 12 wins. Like, that's a good year. And if you win 15 at the Citadel, that's like winning 20 anywhere else.
I know that's right. I have seen also in our research that Virginia Tech has competed against the Citadel Ace. What's your response to what Rob's talking about?
I mean, I respect the Citadel. I respect other military schools that is like the VMIs and all that.
Yeah.
And just to see what they have to go through outside of just being a student athlete, that the rigorous, the military demands. Because I knew some guys that went to prep school at Fort Union.
Yep.
And Hargrave. And some of my teammates, when they came in as freshmen, they was like, yo, they wasn't cleaning our rooms. I go to that residence hall, and they wouldn't clean. They was like, yo, we are cleaned out because we did it at Fort Union. We had to have our beds made up at 6 in the morning. Yep. So when they got to college, it was like, oh, I'm on vacation.
That's a good vacation. Rob, after the Citadel, you head to Georgia Southern as director. Is that right? Director of basketball operations.
Yeah. So it was a change. I had coached for 15 straight years, so I was on the floor coaching all the time. And so, when our contract was up at the Citadel, they didn't renew us, and that's part of business you go through. So I kind of had to change paths and find a different avenue. And when I was at the Citadel, I met Mark Byington, and he was at the College of Charleston. So we were able to, spend good time together, get to know each other a little bit. And he had a director of basketball operations position open at Georgia Southern. And so I just, I'd gone through the whole summer and really hadn't found a good coaching job. I was going to go Division II, but I don't know, man. I had that itch, from a Division I standpoint. And so I went with Mark, and, it was really eye-opening because when you're in the ops spot, you can really see how to run a program. You get to understand the budget. You get to understand how the business office operates, all of travel, all of meals, and how you do things. And so, I was able to take a step back from the basketball side of things and say, okay, I got to take this to my advantage. I get to meet with the athletic director once a week. I got an associate athletic director that I'm meeting with every single day. And now I start to look at how can I be a CEO of a program and how can I better myself through this? And it was just a great eye-opener to see the other side of how to run a program. Because I will say this, when you get to the highest level, you are a basketball coach, and you got to know what you're looking at and what's going on with the game, but you still got to be a CEO, and you got to run that program, and you got to be able to delegate, and you got to be able to understand the whole picture. And that was really those next 3 years. I did 2 years at Georgia Southern, and then I came here to Wilmington as the director of operations. And this operation here was even bigger than Georgia Southern. So for 1 year here, really opened my eyes to, what mid-major basketball really is, and even high-major basketball.
That's awesome. And it sounds like delving into those different areas of the same game have really grown you in a lot of respects. And I think, Ace, aren't you kind of experiencing that same thing with your new role at Virginia Tech?
When I was at University of Maryland Shore, we didn't have ops. We didn't have a secretary. The 3 assistant coaches and the head coach.
Wait a minute, time out. Hold on a minute. 30-second time out. Y'all didn't have a secretary?
No secretary.
What?
When the phone rung, it rung directly to us, and we had to answer all the phone calls that came into the office. And we had one coach that was in charge of travel. One coach, I did scheduling.
Yep.
And all of us, of course, go out and recruit. But everybody had different jobs or tasks that they had to do every day when we come to a meeting with the head coach. So we all had our things that we had to do. And I got a chance to really see how to navigate through. And as a head coach, you are, like you said, the CEO of that corporation. And being at a small school, a low major school, I was able to really learn firsthand when I first got into Division I. I learned firsthand, and I was a coach at the same time. And when I speak to some of my friends at the high major level, and they never worked Division II, they never been Division III, and they never was an ops. They just jumped in and was an assistant coach at the high major, so they don't understand the struggles and the demands of a low major or a Division II or Division III coach.
I would guess they don't. Just like I don't understand what my daughter goes through as a Division I pitcher at Towson University. That's right, Towson University. The Tigers. As I sip on my Towson University cup, by my baby girl gave it to me. Yes, go Tiggies. That gets me to my full timeout. This is What's Good Gifted. Another installment of Full Timeout with Ace Custis. We're on a full timeout, getting ready to switch gears. We've been talking to our friend, my guy, Coach Bob Burke. Rob, earlier this year, we all suffered a blow when Kobe suddenly just taken from us. And it's a real serious thing for a lot of people. You know, you and I are very close in age to him. All of us are. All three of us are. And what was that like for you? And how did you kind of deal with that? And then to have then this enormous loss of your father just months later, way worse than anything I would have probably ever imagined. Of course, with the exception of maybe the loss of your children or your wife. This is your father. Yeah. What has 2020 been like for you?
Interesting to say the least. As much as, I mean, I could back it all the ways up. We were not having a great year. And, the administration, we had lost 13 in a row. The administration, or 12 in a row, the administration decided to make a change, and they ended up making me the head coach. So it was definitely a roller coaster. And inside that time frame, obviously Kobe passed. I was dumbfounded, to be honest with you. Now, I'm not a Kobe fan. My day in and day out, it's MJ all day and twice on Sunday. Like the GOAT, that is the real GOAT. I don't care what nobody say. So I had to look at my players, and it messed them up. It really did. We had practice that next day, and I could just tell the mood and their just how they were. It really affected our team. And I looked at it as like, man, how would I react if Mike passed away? If something happened to Mike, and it just, that's how I had to kind of internalize it and really, digest it. But at the same time, it made me realize, man, nobody is invincible. There's one guy that's got everybody in his eyes, and that's the Lord Jesus Christ. And it was time for him to take Kobe home along with his daughter. And, I was blessed to stay, be waking up the next morning. But then, as the year went on, the season finished. And then I want to say it would have been 2 weeks after the season finished. My dad, succumbed to just a plethora of illnesses and things wrong with his body, man. He'd been fighting for a good 13 years. And I don't know, it just, I knew it was coming just because, my dad's had, this operation, that operation, this injury, this illness. And it was just like, bang, 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 but it just kept coming. And so I guess gradually I had started to prepare myself for it, but it was a blow. It definitely was, because, there wasn't a day go by, and especially in the last 6 months, I wouldn't talk to my dad 4 times a day. And I never, my wife gets a little irritated with me because I would go outside at 10 o'clock at night to walk the dog. I'd walk an hour and a half, and I'm on the phone with him the whole time. And, just my dad was my best friend. At the end of the day, nobody else had better intentions for me than him and my mom, and just his leadership, man. That's, Steph, you talked about it. He had a glow about him. I always felt like
magnanimous.
Yeah, I always felt like my dad had the right answer. I would say, Dad, what do you think? And I didn't always agree with him, but then I would go through the scenario and I would be like, dang, that guy was right, man. Every time he just has so much knowledge and life experiences. Not, I mean, with my daughters, with my children, stuff he would tell me about raising a family, about how, you know, I had to make sure my wife was comfortable with, you know, basketball situations I was getting involved with, you know, financial stuff. He just always seemed to have the right answer. And so, you know, the last 8 weeks have been, they've been tough, to be honest with you. I got, you know, I don't have a person in my life like that anymore besides my mom. And trust me, my mom is an unbelievable saint just for dealing with my dad for 50 plus years. But, you know, like we just got that, we had that, you know, father-son connection, and, you know, I miss him every day, man. I think about him all the time. But, you know, the one thing I'm really grateful for, when my dad first had his initial quadruple bypass surgery, I felt like, hey, my dad's found the Lord. Like my dad started praying and, you know, really got into his faith with Catholicism and just having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And I could just see that. And I saw it grow over 13 years. And when my dad passed, I felt, because when I was a young kid, I didn't think my dad was in the church and didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. But when he passed, I know my dad had a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I was thankful that he had found the Lord. And that was something I could, you know, have peace in my heart with.
Oh, Robin, it's so true. This is another episode of What's Good Gifted. We've been on the phone with Rob Burke, longtime friend. Rob, you're down in Wilmington. What's the plan?
Whew.
What's the plan, brother? What's the plan?
I don't know. You know, COVID-19 has really changed the landscape of college athletics here the last 2.5 months. I mean, you know, you see a lot of smaller schools just saying, hey, we're going to cancel 21-22 season. I don't know what the next plan is. I do have, you know, some irons in the fire with some different jobs. I'm going to have to get a little lucky to land one of these jobs, and I'm just going to have to stay the course. At the end of the day, I'm not, in my mind and in my heart, I'm not ready to say, hey, you know, I'm going to have a career change. It's not who I am as a person yet. I know there's going to come a day and time for that to happen. I just, you know, I prayed a bunch about it. I'm not there yet. And so I just got to keep pursuing this dream. It's a dream for me to be a mid-major Division I basketball coach. I don't look at, like, I know I talk to guys and like, hey man, you know, you should look at the high major level. And I like the high major level. You know, there's a lot of perks to it, but being able to spend 4 years with a guy and really see him from a freshman all the way through his senior year and see him graduate and see the development, that's a lot. I take a lot of value in that and investing in guys and building relationships like that. And so I don't know what the answer is to your question, but I'm going through the process of trying to figure it out. And hopefully by August, you know, September, I'll have a better idea, direction of where I'm going. But, you know I want to coach. I know I want to be in college athletics on the basketball side of things. So hopefully I can get lucky.
Well, it sounds like a lot of your dad's tenacity, work ethic, morals, a lot of the things that he looked to in his life and really defined his career are seeping into you with what you're doing with your kids. And of course, your dad coaching players to their highest level. And now you're doing the same thing. You gotta be proud. This has been another episode of What's Good Gifted, and a great segment with our dear friend, my guy, Coach Rob Burke. Ace, what's your final question for Coach Rob Burke?
Yes, before we go, I saw and I hear the love and respect that you have for your dad and how he touched your life and inspired you and impacted you, especially through basketball too, not only being a father. But you said how competitive you two were. You said that you would call him, he said, well, this is the real Coach Burke and all. But in your coaching, how many times on the sideline do you question yourself and say, what would my dad do? Or did I do what my dad would have done? Or after the game, or during the midst of recruiting or whatever, you call your dad for advice?
Oh, I would call him for advice every day. I've done this 22 years now, and I've learned from him. My fourth, fifth, and sixth year at Spartanburg Methodist, he worked with me on the sideline. my first 3 years, I struggled. Like, I mean, I was, you know, you moved that 18 inches over, man. I don't care what level you're at. It's a big 18 inches to become the head coach from assistant. I had all the answers when I was a young guy. And then I got in there and I got popped in the mouth a couple of times. And I was like, man, I got to figure this thing out. So I called my dad. I said, Dad, like, I need you to come down and help me. And so he came down. My dad would live with me during the basketball season, and we would coach together. And so I really got to really see the coaching side of it, and him teach me. So as I've gotten older here, you know, the 5 years at the Citadel and then here at Wilmington, you know, I would tell my dad, hey, I got it, Dad. I got it. Like, I would take his advice, and most of the time he was right. But then I had my own ideas too. And I'll just tell you a quick story about him. So I take this job, and I got basically like 3 days to get ready for the first game. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we play number one Hofstra, the first in the league, Hofstra, on a Thursday night. And so my dad is like on the phone with me Monday night going, you got to change the offense. You got to run the UCLA high post. You got to change the whole offense. And I'm like looking around going, hey, Dad, I ain't got enough time to change this offense. Like, I'm not changing it. And I'm telling you, Ace, for like a week and a half, like we were at each other's throat. But it was coaching. It wasn't like arguing. But I was like, Dad, I can't change it. We put too much time and effort in this thing. Like, we just got to go get better at it, and I got to hold their feet to the fire with it. So as we started to win a couple of games, and we started to get a little rhythm with it and got better at it, you know, just because of some things we did different, he kind of came around to it, and he's like, hey, it's your show. It's your show. He would always say that. He said, I'm just trying to help you. I'm trying to guide you. And he was. He really was, man.
Did he have a question? At any point, did he have a question? Say, why did you call a timeout, or why didn't you?
Oh, no. Hey, the second game, so we lose to Hofstra 61-63. So I got 1 day to prepare. It's a Friday. We're playing, in my opinion, the best coach in the league up at Northeastern. Guy's he's been in the business 30 years. Like, this guy's forgotten more basketball than I know. We're down 17. We come back, take the lead. So now, like, we force overtime. We go into OT, and we take the ball out, sideline out of bounds in front of their bench. And we have just come out of a timeout. So I go into timeout, and I draw up how we're going to get the ball in bounds. And so I draw it up, and I got all 5 guys in the backcourt. Well, they bring their 5 guys there in the court. So if we turn it over, Ace, like if we throw a bad pass, they're going to steal it and lay it up and tie the game up. And so as soon as we got it in bounds, we bobbled it. And then our guy grabbed it, and they fouled us. So now we're going to go make free throws. So it's almost like as they're walking, the guys are walking up to free throw, and I was like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I put all 10 guys back there. Why did I do that? Ace, I go back to the locker room. So my dad's not at the game. I go back to the locker room. My phone, you know how you got the players' locker room, you got coach's locker room. I can hear my phone vibrating in my locker, and it just keeps vibrating. It's keep vibrating. Now the team is celebrating. You got to think about it. We've lost 13 straight. The guys are going nuts and whatnot. So finally, I'm like, all right. I look down at my dad's called me 12, 13 times. And finally, I call him back, and he's like, Ace, he's livid with me. He's like, I can't believe you did that. You had everybody back there. You costed the team. You almost costed the team. Hey, I mean, that's all he could talk about all night long. It wasn't about the win or nothing. He was all over me about having all 10 guys back there.
If he was like that on the phone with you, imagine him watching it at home watching on TV like, oh my gosh, what is he doing?
Hey, my mom could tell you some great stories about my dad throwing the remote, cursing at the TV. I mean, my dad is animated. Now you got to think about, he's 70 years old school, just tough, hard-nosed Staten Island guy from New York. Language was off the charts. But man, I mean, you know, but he always wanted me to see the game and be as efficient and smart about the game as possible, man. He really did.
Oh,
are you from Staten Island?
No, I'm originally I was born in Greensboro, and we moved to Murfreesboro when I was 3 years old. And I'm born and raised, I claim Murfreesboro, man. I'm from the country.
Country, just as country as you can be.
My college teammate was from Staten Island. He played at Curtis High School.
Okay. My dad was Newdorp High School my dad played at.
Okay.
Awesome. Rob, I've always loved hearing you talk about your dad, but it's especially nice now, obviously. And it's been such a pleasure having you on the show
Yep.
with What's Good Gifted, and of course, Full Time Out. Rob, give us your best. And we did this with Scott Burrell the other week. We had Scott Burrell on, and that was such a great treat. So I did this with him. Give us your best 30-second recruit speech. Why kids should play for Coach Rob Burke.
That's a great question. You put me on the spot with that one. I'll say this. At the end of the day, I'm a guy that's going to get up every day and sweat with my players. I understand the game. I understand that, everybody wants to be the best that they can be. I'm going to drive you and push you to be the best you can be. It's one thing to be recruited and be needed. It's be wanted. It's a totally different level to be recruited and be needed. And so most guys that I want to recruit are going to be needed for our program. And I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to make sure you get out of your comfort zone, and I'm going to make you rise to the occasion. And while that whole process is going on, I'm going to build a personal relationship with you that me and you will have the rest of your life, because at the end of the day, I want to be somebody that can mentor you into your next phase of life. And, when that ball, like Ace said, stops bouncing, man, I want you to be able to call on me and use me as a reference and a guide through your life. And that's what you sign up for when you come to play for me. A guy that's going to push you and drive you to be the best you can be. And as you can tell in the background, look at those three guys looking at me right there. Like, they're bought in. At the end of the day, those three guys are bought in. And, I just want those guys to have the same experience I had playing, for my dad, and try to continue to live that legacy that my father put out there.
Ace, I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm going to play for the Owls. I think I'm going to play wherever Coach Rob Burke says. See, I know I told Scott that I was going to play for him. Rob, I still have a 10-foot jump shot.
You got it? You still got it?
And I have like a 12-foot set shot. You know what I'm saying?
I'm probably the only guy. I don't know if you know anybody else that went to school with Steph, but like at the end of the day, like she was athletic. Now I can't hate on her, man. She was athletic. She was a catcher at softball. She was, hey man, that girl could play now.
Thank you so much.
Steph went to the Rivalry High School here on the Eastern Shore.
Okay.
So we've been knowing each other since high school. So I knew her athleticism and all that, and her love for sports growing up in high school. So I've been knowing that she was a true athlete.
Yep. Steph,
you're not gonna make me blush, okay? Stop all that. All right, that's enough of that.
I'm gonna make you blush here, because I just want to tell you, we've known each other since we were 18 years old. I'm 44 now. Like, what you've done with your life, how you raise your daughter, like, kudos to you, girl. You found God in your life. I've listened to you a bunch on Facebook, and I've always paid attention to the things you're talking about, and just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna find somebody out there that you don't even know it. You've impacted their life. So just keep headed in the right direction, and I'm just proud of you, girl. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that, but like, you're doing what you do.
Well said. Well said.
Jeez, you guys. Now I'm all embarrassed and like all flustered. That means a lot to me, definitely, because again, it's been a process, coming out of foster care, trying to figure out how am I going to make it. I didn't even know I was going to go to college. It just kind of happened to go to Chowan, like last minute, like just the whole thing was a cluster, and it means a lot to me. One of, two of my oldest friends on the phone with me right now, giving me kudos. I really appreciate that. And I needed it. It's been a rough couple of months. I'm not even gonna lie. So thank you for that. This has been another episode of What's Good Gifted, and another segment with my guy, Ace Custis, Full Time Out. We've been on the phone with our dear friend and my dear friend, Coach Rob Burke. Coach Rob Burke, you're out of here. We're going to finish it up, wrapping this up. Give us your final, just your final message to what's going on. We talked a lot about what's going on now in the world. What's your final thought on that?
I mean, I would say this to Ace, and I would say this to anybody. Ace, man, just keep calling us white coaches to the carpet, man. Make us. I got to do a better job, man. I got to do a better job of educating my team, guys I'm around, getting them to understand voter rights, understand, even teaching white guys what systematic racism is. I watched the 13th the other night. Just messed me all up, man. It's on Netflix, 13th Amendment. Just Van Jones, man. Just be honest with you. Keep calling us to the carpet. We as coaches, who, if we're going to guide young men, white or black, we have got to do a better job. And we can't sit back and be quiet because, you know, I heard some coaches talking the other day about, you know, I don't know how I represent the university. Hey man, I represent what's right and what's wrong. And I know what we're doing in the police force, in the force that they're using. Not so much the force that they're using as police. We have got to become better de-escalators, man. I mean, we're going to have bad people in the world. We got to have police. We're going to have people that make poor decisions. But the force that we're using in the police force, we have got to correct. And just, I challenge you to challenge us, man. Challenge us white coaches, man. Call us to the carpet and make sure we're standing up and using our voice and to make sure we're doing the right things.
Ace, take us out of here. Your final rebuttal.
Yes, most definitely. I appreciate you, Rob. You saying you stand for what's right and doing what's right. And there's power in numbers. And now you see on TV that everyone is standing for what's right and trying to bring justice to the one that has succumbed to this police brutality and all that. But continue to use your voice, continue to urge others to do the same. And I will do the same on my end as well, because sometimes our voices carry a lot of weight. And because we're in that public eye, and some of the young generation looks up to us, and your voice carries more weight than you really know. And for you to continue to do that and make your voice heard in the community is much appreciated by me, and I can speak on behalf of the entire Black race. That will be greatly appreciated.
Oh, you guys are two gems. Rob, thank you so much for joining us again. Ace, you're my guy. We're going to have to do this again. We got Chris King coming up. Chris King is coming up on What's Good Gifted Full Time Out with Ace Custis and your host, Steph Wood. So we'll look forward to having her on, a pro in her own right. I also trained her when I was with Nike Skills down in Atlanta. True gem. You'll love her. Rob, we thank you so much for spending time with us.
Really do appreciate it.
Of course. This has been another episode of What's Good Gifted. I'm your host, Steph Wood. Y'all be blessed.
Take care.